Hello, all my magical earth beings. I am Libbylogik, your host, favorite empowerment witch, and your main bitch. I am here to provide you with the inspiration to harness your inner power in order to create the reality of your dreams. My passion and intention with this podcast is to ignite a fire in your soul so that you crave to expose the confidence and magic that has always been within you. Let us discover your inspired direction, and together we can transform the BS rhetoric that you are a limited soul and that there is only one way to success. You are an unlimited being with unlimited potential. If you are ready to uncover your inner witch and create from a space of inspiration and empowerment, you have come to the right place. Let's jump right into the episode. And remember, everything you hear today came straight from the witch's mouth. Hello, all of my beautiful souls, and welcome back to Straight from the Witch's Mouth, here with your host, Libbylogik, or Olivia. I am so excited to be back into kind of a flow of things. It has been a long 3 months since I have recorded a podcast, since I have been an actual living, breathing human being, it feels like. If you have not been following me on social media or you just weren't aware, I got into a pretty gnarly car accident, which I'm going to be talking about today, kind of telling you the story of what happened, how it happened, my healing process, what helped during this healing process, what hurt, what I wish I'd done differently, my biggest lesson, things like that. And then at the end of this podcast episode, I'm going to share with you guys my best tips on how to handle trauma/obstacles in 2023, because it is almost the new year, which I am also so excited about, guys. I just have so much to talk about today in this podcast episode. I hope it isn't too long. Let's pray. We'll see how much I ramble on and on. But I'm going to try to keep this story short and simple and sweet and just to the point of what I want to tell you guys. And I also want to preface that I'm not telling you guys this story or any of these things so you feel bad for me, so you're sitting at home like, oh, poor Lib, I need to send her something, wow. Like, I don't want your sympathy. I've gotten so much sympathy, I've gotten so much love, so much support already. I am telling you this story so in this new year or in the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever, I'm telling you this so when you go through something traumatic, or maybe you are going through something traumatic right now, you don't feel like the only person in the world. You don't feel like you're the only one struggling, or you don't feel alone in it. And it's hard, like going through these type of situations, going through these big obstacles, especially when it has anything to do with your body or anything, right? Anything traumatic. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. It's hard to go through, and I feel like it's not talked about enough in a way that's just letting you be hurt, letting you be sad in a way that just lets you feel traumatized. Like, there's so much out there that's just do like 5 things that you can do to heal yourself. This is what you can do to feel better. Get up and be productive, be resilient, and blah, 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 blah. And I am such big supporters of all of those things. But when you're in it, you don't realize how hard it actually was. And going through something like this was actually a big wake-up call for me, because I was always the one that was like, do the best you can. Like, even when you're going through hard times, you can still try. Like, there's still stuff that you can do. And this whole situation was kind of a big, like, fucking slap in the face. Excuse my language, but I wasn't prepared for how hard it actually wasn't going to be. And I wasn't prepared at all, actually, because I didn't even know what was going to happen, which is what happens with most trauma. And that's why I want to give you guys, at the end of this episode, my best tips on how to kind of prepare for trauma and obstacles, because you can't avoid them. They are inevitable. Like, you're gonna go through shit. You're gonna go through it. Like, it's just life, and it's just how it is, and you can't prevent it. And people ask all the time, like, why do you practice all these things? Why do you put these things into place if you know that trauma is gonna happen either way? Like, why even try at that point, right? Shitty things happen either way. It's not to stop the shitty things from happening. Practicing mindset and practicing good habits and setting healthy goals and doing all of these things for yourself isn't to prevent bad things from happening to you. It's to build yourself up so when bad things do happen to you, you set yourself up for success. You set yourself up in a way that you are able to handle it a lot better, because if you are already in a super, super low point and you're feeling really shitty about yourself, you're eating really bad, your body's hurting, your belly's hurting, you're not digesting anything, you're not getting sleep, you're not drinking enough water, and your house is a mess, everything's a mess, and then one more traumatic thing happens on top of that, you're gonna go off the deep end. Like, you're gonna hit rock bottom, and I've been there. Like, it happens when you don't take care of yourself, and it can get out of hand a lot faster than you think it can. It happens really quick, like 3 months of not paying attention to your body or your health or your mental health or your physical health. It can slip away from you like that. And it happens so fast. So I'm already rambling. Let's just jump right into the story of my accident. Again, kind of what had happened, what helped, what hurt, and all of that fun stuff. So the car accident I got into, I wasn't driving. I was in the passenger seat. I was with my boyfriend, Enzo, and my little brother, Corbin. And we were going straight through an intersection, and there was a car on the opposite side of the intersection going left. And so we were pulling forward to go straight. The light had turned yellow, and I saw the car on the opposite side, because again, I was in the passenger seat, I wasn't driving. I assume that Enzo saw the other car too, because he slowed down. But we both saw the car on the opposite side of the road, pulling out to turn left, and he acted like he was gonna go, and so we slowed down, and the light was yellow. And obviously we had the right of way because we were going straight. And so we assumed that he was going to stop and went straight. And then the other car went at the same time and hit us head on, pretty much in a head on collision. We were in a little sedan. My boyfriend drove a Volkswagen Jetta, I believe. I'm not a car person. I believe it was a Jetta. And the other car was in some sort of SUV, so it was a little bit bigger. And I had my feet up on the dashboard. Before I keep going, my passenger seat princesses out there, I know some of you guys are listening. I was one of them. I hate driving. My boyfriend drives. I make him drive pretty much everywhere. I drive sometimes, and every time I sat in the passenger seat, I put my feet up on the dashboard, I throw my foot out the window, all sorts of comfy positions like that. Please stop. Please listen to my story right now and take it as the biggest. Please ever do not put your feet on the dashboard. It is not worth it. It's one of those types of things where you're like, it'll never happen to me until it happens to you. If I wouldn't have had my feet up there, I probably would have walked away from this accident like with a couple bruises and some whiplash, but because of how I was sitting, I ended up being a lot more injured than I would have been if I would have been sitting properly. And actually, when I went to the emergency room, the doctor that was helping me told me that it happens a lot more often than people think, they get a lot more injured just from not sitting properly in the seat in the car. So trust me, I know it's comfortable. I know you want to lounge back, you want to put your feet up, you want to throw your hand out the window, your feet out the window, like all that fun stuff. Just be aware, be smart, be cautious, because this was one of the hardest things I've ever been through, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. It was fucking miserable. Excuse my language, but it was. That's just what it was. It was fucking miserable. And so yeah, so the car hit us head on, the airbags went off. I had both my feet up on the dashboard, and so obviously the airbag hit them, my knees went into my chest, and it's weird, like when people tell you about these stories, you always like flinch, you're like, but it's crazy how powerful our bodies are, because you kind of honestly black out. And anyone I've talked to since this point that's been in a car accident or something kind of scary like that, broken a bone, things like that, you really do kind of black out your body. Like it's like you hit and then you kind of open your eyes and you don't even know what happened, right? So we got in the accident, the ambulance came, the cops came, all of that fun stuff. Something that kind of shitty that happened to me personally in this situation was the paramedics made me walk on my broken foot and so my left foot was broken in 3 different places and my right foot was fractured, my foot/ankle, which I didn't know yet. But the paramedics came over, and I've been in quite a few accidents. I don't know what, I've been trying to like clear this accident energy out of my system. I don't know why I've gotten in quite a few accidents, but I'm only 21 and I think I've been in like 4 or 5 car accidents. So yeah, I don't know what is going on, but I've like pulled tarot cards about it. I've meditated. I'm like, I need to clear this. I'm done getting in car accidents. Like, I don't know why this is happening to me. And every time I got in a car accident, it hasn't been my fault. It's been the other person's fault. But anyways, like I was saying, something that kind of horrible happened after the accident. The paramedics came over, and usually they have you sit there. They tell you don't move, right? They say don't move at all. I was bleeding. I had a big abrasion on my left thigh. I was super bruised. My belly was all bruised. My chest was all like hurting, and my neck was bruised from my knees hitting me. And usually they tell you, right, don't move because you could further injure yourself. Well, in my situation, I don't know who was working. The paramedics honestly looked like they were like 15 years old. And I don't want to bash our emergency system in the US, because I am so grateful that we have that system set up, that we have fire trucks and ambulances and people and paramedics that are skilled in those areas to take care of us and make sure that we're safe. But in this situation specifically, looking back, I am so frustrated because the paramedics came over and they didn't check me. They didn't do like a pat down or pat down. They didn't do anything. Like, they didn't ask me any questions. They basically just came over and said, you need to get out of the car. And I looked at the paramedic and I was like, I really don't think I can walk. I was crying. Like, I was in shock, obviously. I knew something was wrong with my feet, and I was terrified because I couldn't feel either of my feet. And so I was sitting in the car and I was like, something's really wrong. Like, I can't feel my feet. I don't know what happened. And I was crying because I was so terrified that I was paralyzed. I was so terrified that in that moment, the only thought that was going through my head was, I'm never going to be able to walk again. Like, I'm screwed, which was hard, right? It's scary. It's scary to be in that mindset. But the paramedics made me walk on my feet, and my boyfriend who was driving, he had like 2 or 3 broken toes. We're not sure how that happened. I guess the pedals or something just smashed him. But he came over. Neither of us had shoes on. We were both barefoot because we were just going really quick to pick up my little brother. So neither of us had shoes on. Another thing, always have shoes on in the car. Oh, I learned so many lessons in this process. I'm going to try to make this story quick. We're trying. But yeah, we didn't have any shoes on, and my boyfriend came over, and actually he was the one that helped me walk across the street to the curb, which I told the paramedics, I told the ambulance that I couldn't walk, and they didn't help me. The only person that really helped me was a nurse that was actually just witnessed the accident. She just came out of her car and came over and was so sweet. I wish I knew her name, but I don't. She came over and she was talking to me and calming me down and giving me like support and what, you know, doctors and nurses and paramedics are supposed to be doing. I think. She was so sweet. So she helped me a lot, but yeah, I don't know if they were just like volunteers or what, but it just seemed like the whole time no one knew what the hell they were doing. I just felt like they didn't take very good care of us is all. And I think I probably might have injured my feet more walking on them right after the accident than if they would have came and brought like a stretcher or something for me to sit on and wheeled me over to the curb, which I know damn well they have that kind of stuff in their trucks. And so I was just so confused, and I would have asked, but I was just in such a state of shock, and like I feel like my brain was in survival mode that I didn't even think to ask. It was just like, okay, you need to get out of the car so we can move the cars out of the intersection. You have to move. That's what I was told. And so I moved, and I walked across the street barefoot, across the glass and everything. It was so scary. And then we got picked up. We went to the emergency room, took x-rays, all that fun stuff. And that's when we found out that my left foot was broken. My right one was severely fractured. And they told me at that point I might need surgery, which was really scary. I had never had surgery before in my life. Speed this part up really quick. I did end up needing surgery. I got MRIs, and my bone was fractured or broke far enough apart that they had to put a metal plate in, and I also had tendons coming up through the break, and so they had to go in and push my tendons back down so the bone didn't grow over them, and then they put a plate and screws on. And yeah, so that's kind of the story of how it all happened. Now, that seems scary, but honestly, the worst part of it all, as we all know, for anyone who's ever broken a bone, gotten a car accident, anything like that, it's the days after, it's the weeks, the months after of healing. That is the hardest part of it all. The accident was hard, the accident was scary, but the healing process was a bitch. Like, nothing in my life had prepared me for this. I know people go through a lot harder things, but it was just, for me personally, it was just hard. Like, it really was hard. So I want to now talk about just kind of the things that helped and what hurt. So I would say the things that helped the most were the people around me, honestly, the support system I had. It was amazing. And one of the biggest lessons I actually learned in that was learning how to receive help, because I was always the type of person, super independent. Even since the moment I came out of the womb, my mom told me, like, I never wanted help with anything. I wanted to get dressed by myself, put my own shoes on, clean myself. Like, I want to do everything by myself. I've been very independent my whole life, and I've always had the type of personality of like, I don't need help, I can do it on my own, or like, I can do it better on my own, right? I'm gonna do it myself because I don't trust anyone else to do it. And I've always been that way, and I've tried to work on it a little bit in the past, but it's kind of one of those things that just slip past your mind, right? You don't really think of it as a super negative thing, and you're like, oh, maybe I need to work on that. Well, the universe didn't give me a choice this time. He was like, well, here you go. I'm going to take every ounce of independence you have, strip that away from you, and let's see how you do. So I would say, yeah, definitely the support system, and just being able to, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I was so grateful that I had these healthy habits in practice before this had happened, right? And a healthy mindset in practice, all of these things that had helped me through this, to whereas if I would have gone through this without having that, or without having those mental tools to pick myself back up and find the bright side of things and focus on what I can do rather than what I can't do, I would have been a lot more miserable. And so that's why, like I said at the beginning, I think it's so important that we put these things into practice to not prevent bad things from happening to us, but to set ourselves up for success. And not to say that this wasn't hard. Trust me, like I said, it was it was the most hardest thing I have been through, and I'm still not at the end of it. It's been 3 months now, and I'm just barely walking again without my boot, and I've started going to the gym again, but I still can't do much. I can't walk far. Like, it's still going to be a long process till I am back to what I used to be before we got in the accident, right? Till I'm back to my full strength. And I'm in physical therapy twice a week as well, which has really been helping. But yeah, mainly what helped was having a support system and being resilient. Just the way that I had built my resilience before this had happened helped me more than I would have ever known. Like, it was so vital to me to have these important practices put into place. Like, even when it first happened, I still tried every day to like get up and brush my teeth and comb my hair, which sounds like it's really, really simple things, but when you can't walk, those things are hard. Like, taking a shower was really hard. Going to the bathroom was really hard. I remember when I was in the emergency room, they handed me the crutches to walk on, and I just kind of stared at the doctor. I was like, how am I supposed to walk on these? And the doctor told me that I could put weight on my fractured foot, but I couldn't put any weight on my broken foot. So he was like, you can put weight on it. You'll be okay to put weight on it, is what he was telling me. And I just burst into tears, because even though I could put weight on my other foot, it hurt like a bitch. Like, it was still, I couldn't walk at all. I had to be carried pretty much everywhere. I needed help doing everything. I couldn't get dressed by myself, couldn't get in the shower by myself, couldn't make my own food. Like, when I was saying all my independence got stripped away from me, that is what I mean. Like, I needed help paying for my bills. I wasn't working. I couldn't go into work. I needed help feeding myself. I needed help bathing myself. I needed help getting water. Like, the most basic things I needed help with. And so really just learning and practicing surrender and just saying, this is where I am, this is where I'm at, and I've just got to accept it. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper again, like I said at the end, and talk more about what really helped me through this and my best tips to handle trauma and obstacles. But I also want to talk about what hurt the most during this process, because even though I was pretty mentally strong before this happened and I had all these practices put in place, it doesn't mean that it wasn't still hard, that I didn't cry every day. And I wasn't depressed. I was depressed, and I was experiencing pretty bad depression and just like loss of hope, and just kind of like in this mindset of, why did this happen to me, right? And I think that's kind of what anyone goes through when things like this happen. It's, why did this happen to me? Why me? Like, why am I going through this? And especially because this happened right in a pivotal point in my life. Even I'm looking at my calendar right now, and I just barely moved back down in my room. So when the accident happened, I swapped rooms with my mom, because I rent in her basement and she lives upstairs. And I couldn't go up and down the stairs, so she swapped rooms with me. So she came and stayed down in my room, and I went and stayed up in her bedroom upstairs. So I'm just barely back down in my bedroom at my desk, and the months that I have a whiteboard calendar above my desk, and the month September is still written on it, and the 22nd it says finish content for Goals by Design, which is my very first course I was working on. And I finished the content for that day. I had beta testers. I was about to send it out. Like, things were really taking off for me. I was being so consistent in the gym. I was going like 5-6 days a week. I was feeling so good about myself. I was meal prepping every day. Like, I was in a really pivotal place, and I was feeling really good about myself. And on that day, on the 22nd, where it says finished content for Goals by Design, that's the day I got in the accident. So again, I was in that mindset of like, what the fuck? Why did this happen to me? What is the purpose? Why am I going through this? And I think the main conclusion I came to was just because you have to go through things like this in life to get new perspectives, right? To get new lessons. And sometimes the lessons come hard, and they come quick, and they come unexpected, and those are the ones that you have to pay the most attention to. Those are the ones that you have to take the most away from, because it didn't happen for nothing, right? This didn't happen to me for no reason. There were so many valuable lessons I got out of this, and so many valuable relationships built, and so many valuable things I learned even about myself that I didn't even know that I needed to work on, that I wouldn't have found out if this didn't happen. And obviously no one wants this to happen. No one's wishing for this to happen, but you have to look at it from that perspective. If you don't, I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't, then you're going to be pretty miserable, right? You're never going to find that answer of why did this happen to me. It's just going to be because I'm the victim and bad things happen to me, and the bad things will continue happening to you because you're not learning the lesson that the bad things are bringing to teach you. Then you get stuck in that ongoing bad luck loop over and over and over again, because you're constantly in the mindset of bad things always happen to me, bad things always happen to me, bad things always happening to me, when the bad things aren't necessarily bad things. They're just lessons and obstacles that you are meant to go through on this life, right? No one goes through this life just willy-nilly. Nothing bad ever happens to them, or nothing hard ever happens to them, right? We have to go through things that are hard to make us feel human again. We have to go through things that are hard to help us grow and expand into our new lives, into new experiences and new journeys. And without these things, we wouldn't gain these new perspectives and lessons. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and first, before I move on, the last thing I wanted to say is one thing that I wish I'd done differently in this healing process is mainly letting myself rest without guilt, because I was super independent and I'm super productive. I have one of those personalities of, if I'm not being productive, I feel like I'm being lazy. And that, again, is something that I've kind of worked on, but just slipped over my head, right? Of like, being productive all the time is kind of bad. Like, that's kind of a bad personality trait to have. Like, not being productive all the time, but feeling guilty when you're not being productive is where you kind of screw yourself. And so it just kind of slipped over my head, and it's not something I had ever really focused on changing or working on, but this forced me to. And for the longest time, for the first month, I was feeling so guilty, right? I would lay in bed all day and watch TV and think I could be planning podcast episodes, I could be writing Instagram posts, I could be making content for my course, I could be doing all these things. And I would just sit there all day and dwell on all the things that I could have been doing until finally I realized that I didn't want to do anything. And not only did I not want to do anything, I just purely didn't have the energy to. And I want to make something really clear to you guys. When you go through something like this with your body and your mind and all of the energy that you have goes towards healing. Even if you're not noticing it, you feel drained just because your body's trying to heal itself. You don't have any more mental capacity for anything else. It's just healing, and that is okay. It's okay. It's all right. Let me tell you guys, I went through it, and it would have been a hell of a lot easier had I just accepted it from the very get-go and just let myself lay in bed all day and watch Disney movies and eat food and be served, right? And I felt so guilty. I hated asking people for favors. I hated asking people for food. I hated asking my mom to make me dinner every night, or telling her when I was hungry or when I was thirsty. I hated needing help to take a shower, or I needed someone there all the time, or I felt scared, honestly. I was when I got left alone a couple times, I would be a little bit nervous because I truly couldn't do anything. And again, I'm so grateful that I was surrounded by people to help me. I was talking to my boyfriend when this happened. I was talking to Enzo, and I was like, I couldn't imagine going through this without having such a big, loving, supportive family to help me. I couldn't imagine if I lived in a different state, or I wasn't around immediate family, or I was living by myself or traveling or whatever, and I went through something like this and I had no one around to help me. What do? You get sent home from the hospital and you just kind of have to fend for yourself. And that's so scary. And so it just made me feel so grateful that I have that. But yeah, definitely what I wish I had done differently is just allowing myself to rest, just allowing myself to surrender, allowing myself to just let go of the guilt, let go of the shame, let go of, I don't want to ask someone so-and-so for this, like I'm being too needy, I'm being too pushy, I can do this by myself, I'm being dramatic. Like it even down to when I was in the ambulance and they were asking me how I felt, I had never broken a bone before this, so I didn't really know what to look for, to be honest. But also I didn't want to be dramatic. I remember sitting on the stretcher, like in the ambulance. I didn't drive in the ambulance. My mom came and picked us up, but we were just waiting there in the back of the ambulance until they got there. And I remember laying on the stretcher and they were like asking me how it felt and how certain things felt, and I was like playing it down because I remember laying there and I was like, I don't want to sound too dramatic. I don't want to lay here and be like, yeah, my foot's broken, and then go in and it just be sprained or something. Like I knew something was probably wrong, being as I couldn't walk on it at all, but I didn't want to sound dramatic. Like that's how deep this goes. I didn't want to sound too needy. I didn't want to sound like I was asking for more than I needed. And that whole mindset comes from a place of lack. It comes from a place of there not being enough, right? I can do it on myself. I can do it myself. I'm too dramatic. All of those things. It comes from a place of not believing that people out there want to help you, right? There's a lack of love, there's a lack of support, there's a lack of help, which there isn't. There is so much help out there, there is so much support out there. You've just got to go looking for it, right? I always say to people, you're gonna find what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for reasons to be sad, if you're looking for reasons to be depressed, if you're looking for reasons to be lonely, you're gonna find it. If you're looking for support, if you're looking for help, if you're looking for love, if you're looking for reasons to pick yourself back up, you're gonna find it, right? You just have to look for it. And you gotta actually put in some effort, right? Okay, now I am going to talk about my best tips. I have 4 written down. My best tips on how to handle trauma/obstacles in 2023. Like I said, these obstacles, these things that come up, they're inevitable. They're going to happen to everyone, and we can't predict them. We can't predict when they're going to happen. And so my number 1 best tip is resilience. Resilience is key, and grow your resilience any way you can, any way you can practice. The definition of resilience is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. Toughness. So it's basically your ability to be tough, right? To stay mentally strong through things like this and not let yourself slip away too far. And it can happen really easily. And I was, like I said, I was already a pretty resilient person, and I felt like I dealt with this pretty well. I felt like I was able to handle it. I was still definitely sad. I was still definitely dealing with depression and trauma in my own way, but if I hadn't practiced resilience in the way I had before, it would have affected me a lot worse than it did, mentally at least. And I wouldn't have been able to bounce back as quickly as I did, right? It was as soon as I started walking, I was back in the gym. As soon as I started like getting movement, I was doing ab workouts in bed. I was doing arm workouts. Like, I knew that these things were good for me, and so I tried any way I could. I started teaching myself to crochet. I wrote in my journal. I made bracelets. I colored. I drew. I watched movies. Like, I was definitely sad, but after it happened, I was like, okay, Lib, this is the reality of it all, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Like, this is the facts. You can't walk. And so what can I do to make this the best possible reality that I can? Even though it definitely wasn't the best, definitely wasn't ideal, but I had these practices in place. So as soon as that happened, I was looking for things to help. And like I said, when you're in a really low place and something like this happens to you, you start looking for any other reason to be sad, right? You're not in that mindset of looking for things that are going to help entertain you, help keep you happy, help keep your mind distracted. You're just looking for any other reason to be sad because you're already sad and you want that to be validated. And so in practicing resilience, when things like this happen, like I said, you can set yourself up for success in a way so when they do happen, you're mentally strong enough to push yourself through it, or to pull yourself through it and come out the other side a better and stronger person. And some really easy ways you can practice resilience is just by, one, not letting your emotions control you, right? Not letting your emotions take control of your actions, right? Your actions need to be based off of, oh, sorry, I was stretching. But yes, not letting your emotions control your actions. This is one of the best ways you can practice resilience, right? When someone cuts you off in traffic, if you're the type of person that freaking snaps and you're like, whoa, 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 like, F you, you're this, and you call them every name in the book, maybe you need to work on that a little bit. Because it's not worth it, right? It's not worth losing your shit and letting something so small ruin your whole day. So if you are struggling handling the small obstacles like that, someone cutting you off, or a bill coming that you weren't expecting, or something that's small but still significant like that, practice not letting your emotions control your actions, right? You have to make a smart decision no matter what. You have to stay in the practical mindset of, okay, these are the facts and I have to make a practical decisions. What's the solution? You have to stay solution oriented. Okay, someone cuts you off in traffic, like, that's not a super big obstacle or traumatic experience. I guess for some people it could be, but you just can't let the small things like that affect you as deeply as you normally would, because at the end of the day, they don't matter and it's not worth your energy. So practice resilience. Practice. Number 2 kind of goes with resilience, but separate the emotion from the situation. This helped me a lot when I was going through this. Just being able to not necessarily say, I can't be sad, right? I was very, very, very sad for multiple days. I would wake up in the middle of the night crying, just sad, right? I was just going through it. We were just going through a lot. And so not necessarily saying that you can't be sad and you can't feel all those things, because that is a good thing, right? We want to feel through all of our emotions and we want to feel them deeply and experience them and then release them. So, but separating the emotion from the situation helps a lot in these types of trauma or obstacles, because you can say, okay, like for example, my situation, both my feet were broken. I couldn't walk. That was the situation, right? That was my predicament. And I was feeling really sad because of it. But instead of saying I'm feeling really sad because my feet are broken, I had to separate that, right? I wasn't feeling sad because my feet were broken. I was feeling sad because I couldn't go hiking and it was fall and it was my favorite season. I was feeling sad because I was getting so strong at the gym. I was weightlifting every day and I couldn't go anymore. I was feeling sad because I was about to launch my course and it all got put to a halt, right? I wasn't sad that specifically my feet were broken. I was sad that I couldn't do all these things I loved. And in that, I was able to, it didn't happen right away, right? I told you guys, like, for the first whole month, I was just depressed. I didn't want to do a damn thing. Like, I didn't even try. I was just done. I was just so upset. And so, but like second, third month, I was able to kind of start doing this. And instead of sitting there and just saying, I'm sad because my feet are broken, and I can't do anything, I started finding things that I could do, right? And it wasn't the ideal situation, like I said, but it kept my mind distracted and it kept me kind of happy. And like I said, I started doing ab workouts from bed. I ordered bands off of Amazon. I did some butt workouts and I stretched any way that I can. I started meditating every day. I taught myself how to crochet. I started crocheting a blanket. And it was all these things that built up that helped me get through this, that helped me stay mentally strong. And I made a list of, once I was getting a little bit more mobile, like I said, about the second month, I made a list of everything I wanted to do. I don't know if you guys remember on my Instagram, I did like Empowered in 7 days, I think, or was it 10 days? I don't remember. It was before we went to Disneyland on our trip, and which was super fun. But yeah, I did a little challenge, and every day I would just make it a point to like read, brush my teeth, brush my hair, get dressed, like throw away the trash in the room, in my mom's room that I was staying in. And just doing those small things made the biggest difference, right? And then after I would lay down in a clean room, all the trash was thrown away, the bed was made, I was kind of ready. I got ready in quotation marks as ready as I could, laying in bed all day. But even those things helped a ton. Okay, so yes, number 1, resilience. Number 2, separate the emotion from the situation. Number 3, build yourself a strong support system. I am lucky enough that I was kind of born into one. I was born into a really, really big family, and I've always had a big support system around. And so that's something I'm so grateful for. And I can't really speak to the people that didn't have that growing up, even though I have so much respect for you and so much, I see you, right? I see those people out there that weren't born into situations like that. But build yourself a strong support system. And I know this may sound a lot harder than I know this sounds a lot easier than it is, and it's hard finding people that you get along with and can be friends with and can open up to, but really try, right? Really try to find that. You can find what you're looking for. If you're looking for it, you're gonna find it. Find close friends and put energy into having close relationships, because if you get into a situation like this, you have to have a support system. You have to have people around you that love you and are willing to help you, and you have to be in a place to receive that help. And then my very, very last step is baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. I talk about baby steps all the time, not only in hard situations like this, but in any situation. And when you're trying to grow or expand at all as a human, it's baby steps, right? When you're trying to heal, it's baby steps. You have to take it one day at a time, and you have to stay present. You can't look forward, right? I remember people, when I was going through this, they would tell me, like, it's gonna go by so fast, like you're gonna heal so fast, you're not even gonna remember. But I remember I hated people telling me like that, because it wasn't going by fast. It was not going by fast. Every doctor's appointment felt like it was a century away. Every milestone felt like it was a years away. I felt like I was in that boot for a fucking eternity. It did not go by fast. And when people say stuff like that, you just have to remind yourself that they're trying to help, 1, and 2, just focus on being present. You have to be present in the moment and focus on the things that you are doing rather than you're not doing. Take those baby steps. Get up, brush your teeth, brush your hair, make the bed. The tiniest things make you feel so much better about yourself. You have no idea. All right, guys, that is all I have for you today. I kept it about 40 minutes long. Not too bad, not too shabby. I hope you guys benefited from hearing my story. I hope these tips help you out in future trauma and obstacles that you may come through in 2023, because like I said, they are inevitable, and you just kind of have to accept it, that it's going to happen, and set yourself up for success. Take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of your health. Please don't put your feet on the dashboard, and love yourself so deeply, because you deserve it. I love you guys so much, speaking of love, and I hope you guys have an amazing day wherever you are in the world. I will see you guys next time. Mwah. Libby here again. I just wanted to thank you so much for following your intuition and pushing play today. Remember that if you enjoyed listening to this episode, the best way you can support me is by leaving a review or taking a screenshot so you can share this podcast with friends, family, or fellow witches who you know would love to get in on the magic. If you are craving even more empowering content that comes straight from a witch's mouth, you can find me on Instagram at Libbylogik, Libbylogik, or on my website at libbylogik.com. Until next time.